we will get cracking, I think, because we've got a pretty tight schedule. So starting off with Dan. Dan is a colleague of mine in London who is one of our team on the teacher training side of things in London. He also teaches at our language school, OHC, and is, a great colleague to have. And he's going to be talking to us about listening.
Everyone.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Dan. Lizzie already introduced me, so thank you very much. I am part of Teaching House in London, and I also teach at Oxford House College in central London. So I'm going to talk to you today about listening, as Lizzie said. I will share my screen. And here we are. Can you all see it well, I hope?
Yeah.
Good. This is a talk called Beyond Comprehension, Exploiting Listening Tasks in the Language Classroom. So, beyond comprehension, what does that mean? I thought it's an interesting title. It sounds a bit like something that's really far too difficult for anybody to understand. Beyond comprehension. But in this context, it actually means going beyond the traditional comprehension tasks. Using them, of course, is fine. But what can you do to check that they've been effective and to exploit them a little bit more? That's what I mean by going beyond comprehension. So if we look at these two pictures, they represent comprehension. And what is comprehension really? Well, comprehension is understanding, and listening and understanding is what you're doing now, at the moment, to me. I'm speaking and you're probably understanding all of the words that I'm saying to you as I say them, I would imagine, because you have high listening skills. But if we look at these two pictures here, they represent bottom-up and top-down processing. Perhaps you know, but which one do you think is which? Maybe somebody can say in the chat box. The one on the left. Which is the one on the left with the bird? Yes, it is. Top-down processing. Thank you, Mohammed. So this is useful. What role does this play in listening comprehension? Well, it plays quite a big role. It's as the bird here is flying over the land, the bird gets an overview of everything. And this is really bringing with you preconceived ideas or understandings of topics. So you come to the listening task with ideas of meaning already, and then you work towards language. So if this one is top down, sorry, then this one is bottom up. And this one is the opposite. This one is looking at language and then finding meaning. So it's looking at the level of the word and the level of the sentence. So are they important? Well, yes, they're both important. I'm going to talk about them both a little bit more. But I would like to argue that perhaps we need to focus a little bit more on bottom-up processing and not only top-down processing. I need 1 second. My key, oh, there we go. Okay. So this is a quote from John Field. John Field wrote a book, Listening in the Language Classroom. And quote is, for many years, teachers have based their teaching upon testing upon an approach which measures achievement in terms of the ability to provide answers to comprehension questions. He goes on to say that correct answers to these questions may be achieved by any means, one of which is simply intelligent guesswork. Oh. Okay, so intelligent guesswork, really, this is where I feel that focusing too much on the top-down processing, be it with pre-listening tasks and conversation tasks, perhaps, makes it a little bit too easy, for want of a better expression. And what I have designed to show this in a little bit more detail is a listening task. So please have a look at this. This is my task. So an idea which is related to top-down processing is the idea of schema. Activating the schema, the individual's knowledge that they bring with them to a certain topic. So this topic is about hiking in the Swiss mountains. And the picture will help. So let me read the task for you. Javier is hiking in the Swiss mountains. Are the following questions true or false? Number one, there is only one question because I didn't write a whole listening task. The weather was colder than he thought it would be. Okay, and in the chat box, please write if you think that's going to be true or false. True, true, false, true, false, don't know, unanswerable. Okay, many different ideas. How can you answer? Yeah, well, okay, you can't really answer, but I think mostly it's coming up with true. Yeah, at this point, is he Swiss is a good question. No, in my mind, he was Mexican, but yeah, you have no idea what Javier thought at the moment. This is absolutely true, but maybe you could guess true because the mountain looks cold. This is kind of my point, but what I will do now is read you the audio script and then you can answer the question true or false. Okay, so is everybody ready? I had originally thought that a light windbreaker jacket would be enough. But as I shivered, scantily clad on the side of the snowy mountain, I realized I needed something much more appropriate for this time of year. So what do you think, true or false? Now, most people are saying true. True, true, true. Most people are saying true. Now it's true because you included more details and what Javier thought. So true. Yes, yes, yes. Very good. But I would argue that this question is guessable as John Field says, intelligent guesswork. I think you could probably guess that. And I have included, this is the audio script, but I have here some possible student answers. So let's look at this. The possible student answer is true. And the teacher says yes, and you move on. What do we think? Is that satisfactory? Maybe. If you just want a correct answer to the question, then maybe yes. Number two, true, because Swiss Alps in the winter are cold. This is better, but it's not actually what he said. Yeah. True, because he was shivering. This is even better. It shows that they've heard and understood the word shivering. And finally, true, because he realized he needed something more appropriate than a windbreaker jacket, and he was shivering and felt like he was scantily clad. But do we really think it's very likely a student will say this? Maybe. It depends on the level. What do you think the level is of this listening task, of this course book? Could be advanced. Well, the point is that it's not a very well-designed task. And so it doesn't really check understanding all that well. So what I would say is we can look at this. We can look at the audio script. We can repeat parts of it, and we can help the learners with this. So here are my ideas. I'll go through them all with you. So number one is listen with the audio script. This is a simple one. And really, it is, in my opinion, invaluable. And I read somewhere, I can't remember where I read it, which is not very helpful, but I always remember it. And it says that if you don't listen with the audio script, you're really missing out on a lot of language and a lot of opportunities for the learners. So that one is quite simple. The asterisks here and here means that you can't do it with the audio script. The other ideas I have, you can do with the audio script. So ask learners to underline the section that tells them the answer is true. They could do that here. Here, I think you would have various answers, which is why it might be good to do a pair check after this, because you could have shivered as an answer. You could have scantily clad. If somebody knows what that means, they could underline that as an answer. But you could also have originally and then realized, because it shows his change in thought. So if students compared what they had underlined, they would get a lot out of that, I feel. Next, you could repeat small sections again, not all of it. That would help. Number 4, you could ask learners to identify how many words there are in an utterance, short or long. You could do this to elicit the answer, or you could do this just with sections to check understanding. For example, here, usually I say contractions are one word, like this. I'd originally thought. And you say, how many words? I'd originally thought. How many words? You can write in the chat box how many words. You can see it. So it's a very easy, it's an easy task here. Yeah, three. Well done. Very good. With my rule of a contraction is 1, that would be 3 words. Yes. Next, we have ask learners to repeat utterances they hear. So this would be before asking them to write it down, or before you write it down, you say again, but I'd originally thought, and they repeat, but I'd originally thought. I think that if they repeat when they don't quite understand what they're saying, that is okay. Perhaps not everybody would agree with me on that, but I think that do that first, then write it down, and they can match it afterwards with what they hear and what they see. You can ask, number 6 here we're on, ask learners to identify sections they find particularly difficult or can't catch, and then they tell a partner. That can be done with the audio script or without. 7, ask learners to note down the stressed words and then piece together the whole text. Now, this one is an interesting one. I got this idea actually from Lizzie. Yeah, she told me about this one. This one is, there's an asterisk here, so you cannot do this with the audio script. But if we look at it as an example, maybe the stressed words that they would write down are originally, windbreaker jackets, enough, shivered, snowy mountain, realized, much, appropriate, time, year. So they would write those words down and then piece together the text step by step, working together with a partner or individually, or with you doing it on the board. Maybe the next time they'd get, I'd originally thought that a light windbreaker jacket, enough, shivered, clad, side of the snowy mountain, realized, much more appropriate, and then it builds like that. What number is next? Number 8, ask learners to identify weak forms. They can do this with or without it links with number 7. They can do it with the audio script or without. Ask learners to underline new vocabulary, most likely scantily clad in this text, and you would elicit that and clarify it in whatever way you saw fit. I think a dictation, or how many words, or dictation filling in this part would be quite useful. This is going to be probably the elusive section. But as I shivered, scantily clad on the side of a snowy mountain, shivered, snowy mountain are quite intelligible, but scantily clad, if you don't know it, it might be quite difficult. Ask learners to identify features of connected speech, again, with or without the audio script. With is potentially easier, they can look at the letters and work it out. Here we have linking, I'd originally. Again, when you're doing this kind of breakdown of the text like this, I think drilling pronunciation practice at any opportunity is useful, really. I'd originally, repeat, I'd originally. Good. And then examples of elision are also present in this text. Thought that, you could ask them which letters are missing when it's said quickly in connected speech. I think this is also a worthwhile task. Where are we now? 11, ask learners to say the next word in the text. This one is potentially useful for lower levels, just to check really that they're following. You can do this with the script, probably better with the script, but not impossible without the script. For example, maybe somebody can say it, we can have a vocal participation. I'd originally thought that a light windbreaker jacket would be enough, but as I shivered scantily,
Clad.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and it's quite satisfying when the learners do that, and they find it quite enjoyable. Go further forward. Yes, and the last one, ask learners to say stop when they hear the relevant part. Yeah, this pretty much all of the details here are relevant to this question being true. So it might not work very well in this particular one. I'd originally thought that a light windbreaker jacket would be enough. Stop. There we go. He already thinks that it's cold. But as I shivered, stop. Scantily clad, stop. There's lots and lots of language that gives you the answer true here. And yeah, these are my 12 ideas. Which idea do you like of these? I'm looking in the chat just briefly. Do you suggest using the audio script for the initial listening, or for not for the initial listening? No, but it does raise the question, how many times are you going to listen? I think they need a chance without the audio script to listen and to do the tasks, and then you get into the details, and then, you know, the very close details with the audio script after. But listening twice, you know, if you have a gist task and you have a comprehension task, and then you listen again, that's 3 times. I would say not a terrible idea. listening 3 times to a text. If you want to get the most out of a text, maybe it's something you could try. Perhaps not every lesson, because if the language point is grammar or vocabulary, and you want to move on and do that, then I think, you know, you're probably not it's not the best use of your time for that lesson. But if it's a listening lesson, certainly. Let me move on. How much time do I have? 5 minutes?
You got 8 minutes if you want, Dan.
Okay. Right. This. Okay. So a little point on this one. In fact, I think I'm going to skip this. Maybe my slides will be available, perhaps. But I'm going to look at some materials that I think do listening tasks very well. Perhaps you are familiar with some of these course books. I'll start with the lower level task that I chose. It's Navigates. This is quite a divisive course book, I feel, but there are some good things about it. I don't want to speak ill of any course books, so I'm just going to talk about how this one is good. So here it is. Can you see it, everyone? Yeah, thank you. Good. So this is about Moscow, and there's a nice big picture here to help with some top-down processing here. Then the questions, these are the initial questions. So more than one question. Why are Hannah and George talking about Moscow? What does Hannah think of the transport there? And what is an unusual way of traveling in this city? So I think this is good because, especially the last question, what is an unusual way of traveling in this city? You can't do this with, as Field says, intelligent guesswork, I don't think. You could guess the underground or the subway system, but that is not the answer. That is wrong. So then you'd have to ask again and elicit the correct answer. Does anyone have an idea what the correct answer is? If you've seen this course book before, don't write it down. Okay. Let's go to the audio script, because the answer is contained here. But there is one great thing. You can simply stand in the street and stop any car like a taxi, and they give you a lift for money. Oh, wow, that's cool. Okay, so moving on to accommodation. So this, what I would probably do with this section is some of the techniques, some of the 12 on the list, because it's quite difficult for an elementary level class. And the other 2 questions, perhaps not, but just this section, have a look at it with the audio script, repeat parts of it, look at it, just to check real understanding. Okay, and the other one that I think is good is outcomes. This is another textbook that I've used quite a lot. This one, it has some of the general tasks, the gist tasks. Then it gets into connected speech, taking some examples. Here we are. Not as much as I used to. I might drill that first, and some elision here as well. Then what I really like about this, I will show you, is if we go down, bear with me, going down to page 157. Here we are. So there is an ordinary version of the audio script further down, but I won't show you that because it's just a normal audio script. But this one is basically the answer key for marking connected speech and elided final consonants. I think this is really nice. You can get them to listen again whilst following this particular audio script, noticing the features, and then turn it into a pronunciation exercise with, so did you have a nice weekend, drilling, things like that. It was okay, nothing special really. So it's opportunities for pronunciation practice as well as checking full, complete comprehension of the listening. Okay, back to my slides. Just about finished. Some final thoughts here. So top-down and bottom-up processing work together in harmony. I would say don't ignore the top-down stuff because it might make some answers guesserable, but not if the task is designed very well. And it's important to let students come to listening tasks with, you know, some knowledge of the topic. We don't normally listen to things without some idea of what's happening. Like now you knew what the topic was, and you had some ideas about what I would say, and you know, you're native speakers or proficient speakers, but still it makes it easier to understand the talk. I would say be a vigilant teacher as well. This means that, like back here when the student said true, and maybe only one student says true, and you say good and move on, but the other 15 students were quiet. So being a vigilant teacher means checking understanding, asking why, repeating certain sections of the listening, asking them to repeat it. Just don't always take the first answer and run with it. Number 3, don't be afraid to do a whole listening lesson, or at least extend maybe your half of a lesson. 1 hour on the same text, not a terrible idea at all, I don't think. And use the audio script when you feel it will help. It doesn't have to be done with every single listening task, but it is a helpful tool, and you can exploit it with some of the ideas I mentioned. So I hope that's helpful. I really believe that these things are helpful for the learners, and I do them most weeks. So thank you for your time.